One choice. One moment. One love story. Welcome to When He Chose Her. Enjoy the story. 25 experts had failed, but the woman carrying coffee was about to solve the one problem money couldn't. At 8:42 p.m., the 61st floor of Hale Dynamics glowed above Manhattan like a second skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city in silver light, while inside the executive war room, tension moved quieter than smoke. Screens flashed streams of code. Half-finished espressos lined a 12-foot walnut table. 25 of the most expensive consultants in America stared at one locked system and looked suddenly ordinary. Preston Hale stood near the glass with one hand in his pocket and the other resting on the back of a leather chair. At 38, he had built a fortune people wrote books about and competitors whispered about. His navy suit fit like discipline. His watch cost more than some cars. His expression, tonight, was worth nothing. How long? He asked without turning around. No one answered at first. Then a gray-haired engineer cleared his throat. Best estimate? 45 minutes. Preston finally looked back. You said that 45 minutes ago. Silence returned. It was the kind only rich people feared, because silence meant their money had stopped working. On the center screen sat a blinking message no one in the room could erase. Access denied. Trade authorization pending. Deadline, 9:30 p.m. If they missed it, a $400 million acquisition would collapse before markets opened in Tokyo. Preston had spent 6 months arranging the deal. Lawyers, analysts, flights, dinners, strategy calls at 2 a.m. And now the final obstacle was a security puzzle no one could crack. Try the mirror logic, one consultant said. Already did. Then reverse sequence. Failed. Use manual bypass. Locked. Another man loosened his tie. A woman rubbed her temples. Someone muttered that the vendor should be sued. Preston checked the clock again. Each second sounded expensive. Then the door opened softly. No one looked up. A young waitress entered pushing a service cart with fresh coffee, bottled water, and pastries no one intended to eat. Her name tag read Clara. Black uniform. Hair tied back. Calm eyes. She moved through the room like she belonged to no one and owed nothing to anyone. Coffee refresh? She asked politely. Just leave it. A consultant snapped, still typing. Another laughed without humor. Maybe the muffins no encryption. A few tired smiles appeared. Clara said nothing. She poured coffee into a cup beside a man who hadn't blinked in a minute. Then she glanced at the main screen. Once. Twice. 3 seconds at most. She had seen similar adaptive filters before while studying behavioral security models. She continued pouring. Can someone lower the room temperature? Another consultant said. I can't think. Clara placed a cup near Preston. You're all solving the wrong problem, she said gently. Every sound in the room stopped. Preston turned fully now. Excuse me. Clara met his gaze without flinching. That isn't a lockout screen. It's a behavior filter. One consultant barked a laugh. And I'm the Queen of England. Another waved a dismissive hand. Sweetheart, just bring sugar packets. Clara looked at him, then at the screen again. You've entered 25 aggressive attempts in under an hour. The system thinks you're attackers. It's not blocking your code. It's blocking your mindset. A few people exchanged irritated glances. Preston studied her face. There was no sarcasm there. No performance. Just certainty. How would you know that? He asked. Clara nodded toward the monitor. Because whoever designed it left a clue in the delay pattern. 7 seconds, then 11, then 13. Prime numbers. It rewards patience, not force. The gray-haired engineer frowned. That's absurd. Then why are you still losing? She asked. No one laughed this time. Preston stepped aside from the table. What would you do? Clara looked around the room at 25 experts, suddenly avoiding eye contact. I'd stop trying to beat it. She set the coffee pot down, reached for a dry erase marker, and walked to the glass board as if she had every right to. She wrote 3 short lines. Pause input cycle. Human verification path. Passive handshake response. Wait 60 seconds, she said. Then, enter one request. No shortcuts. No retries. This is insane, one consultant muttered. Preston never took his eyes off her. Do it. The room obeyed instantly. For 1 full minute, no one touched a keyboard. It felt longer than some marriages. Clara folded her hands behind her back. The city lights reflected in the windows around her, like stars, choosing a side. Now, she said. The engineer entered the command exactly as written. The The screen froze. 1 second. 2. 3. Then the blinking message vanished. Access granted. Authorization open. A man actually dropped his laptop bag. Someone whispered, "No way." Another just sat down slowly, as if gravity had changed. Preston Hale, who always had something to say, said nothing at all. Clara picked up the coffee pot. "Your refill is getting cold," she said. Then she turned and walked toward the door while 25 experts stared at the woman they had mistaken for background noise. The room stayed silent long after the screen unlocked. It was not the respectful kind of silence people practiced in churches or courtrooms. It was the awkward silence that follows when pride slips on a polished floor. 25 consultants, each billing more per hour than many families earned in a week, stared at the closed door Clara had just walked through. Preston Hale looked at the empty doorway as if the answer to a larger question had disappeared with the coffee cart. Then he checked his watch, straightened his cuff, and became himself again. "Finalize the authorization," he said. The spell broke instantly. Keyboards clicked. Phones rang. Someone laughed too loudly. Another consultant muttered that he had almost suggested the same approach. No one believed him. Preston said nothing. He returned to the glass wall and watched Manhattan below, but the city looked different now. Smaller, perhaps. Less certain. 10 minutes later, the acquisition was saved, signatures were sent, and congratulations began arriving from 3 continents. Preston usually enjoyed victory the way some men enjoyed music. Tonight it sounded dull. "Sir," his chief of staff, Martin Cole, stepped beside him. Tokyo confirmed. "We are clear." "Good. Should I arrange media statements for morning?" "Later." Martin lowered his voice. "About the waitress." Preston finally turned. "What about her?" "Security can identify staff. If you believe there was a breach, there was no breach." Preston's tone was calm enough to be dangerous. "There was competence." Martin nodded once. "Understood." Across the room, one of the consultants approached with forced confidence. "Mr. Hale, with respect, her theory only worked because we had already exhausted multiple pathways. Our groundwork made the final result possible." Preston studied him for a moment. "Do you know what groundwork means?" "Yes, sir." "Then start by grounding yourself in reality." The consultant quietly walked away. Preston picked up the cup Clara had placed near him earlier. The coffee was cold now. He took a sip anyway. It was terrible. He drank another. 30 minutes later, the 61st floor had emptied. The city had not. New York never emptied. It simply changed costumes. Preston took the private elevator down through polished steel and mirrored walls, but instead of leaving through the executive lobby, he turned toward the hotel restaurant on the mezzanine level. The hostess brightened instantly. "Good evening, Mr. Hale. Your usual table." "No," he scanned the room. Candlelight. Soft jazz. Couples pretending not to discuss money. Travelers pretending they were not lonely. Then he saw Clara near the service station carrying a tray with 3 desserts balanced perfectly in one hand. "I need 5 minutes with one of your servers," he said. The hostess smiled nervously. "Which one, sir?" "The one who embarrassed my building." She blinked. "I am sorry. The brunette with better instincts than my consultants." "Oh, Clara." Preston walked past her before she could object. Clara delivered the desserts, thanked the guests, and turned to find him standing in her path. She did not look surprised. "You again," she said. "I was hoping for someone with a tip jar." "I wanted to thank you. Try cash. It travels well." Preston almost smiled. "I prefer direct methods." "That explains your consultants. They charged you directly into a wall." He laughed before he could stop. Himself. It had been months since someone surprised him twice in one night. "Walk with me," he said. "I am working. I own the hotel." "That explains the wallpaper." She moved to pass him. He stepped aside immediately. "1 minute," he said. "You gave me one." Clara glanced toward the dining room, then toward the kitchen where orders were stacking up. "You have 40 seconds. Preston folded his hands. "Who taught you systems architecture?" "Life." "Where did you study?" "Questions are free tonight." "For you, yes." "Then no thank you." She reached for a tray. Preston took it from her without thinking. It was heavier than expected. His shoulders dipped. Clara watched with open amusement. "Careful," she said. "That contains cheesecake and consequences." He steadied himself and set it back down. "You enjoy this. Watching rich men discover gravity?" "A little." A cook rang the service bell. Clara lifted the tray with ease. "Time is up. I would like to hire you." She did not even pause. "No, You do not know the offer. I know the type. Name your salary. She stopped then, turning just enough for him to see the steel beneath her calm expression. That sentence works on people who need something from you. I do not. She walked away into the dining room, leaving him with the unfamiliar sensation of having no leverage at all. Preston remained where he was while waiters moved around him like water around stone. Martin appeared from nowhere, carrying a tablet. Sir, your car is waiting. Cancel it. Martin blinked. Sir, I am having dinner here. Alone. Preston looked toward Clara as she laughed softly with an elderly couple at table 12, then adjusted a candle for them before taking their order. Apparently, he said, that depends on whether I can learn manners in under an hour. Martin, who had worked for him 7 years, nearly smiled. Should I notify the kitchen? No. Preston loosened his tie, took a seat in the busiest section of his own restaurant, and waited for the only woman in the building who had ever made him feel unprepared. Clara made him wait 23 minutes. Preston knew because he counted every one of them. Men who managed. Billions often believed patience was one more asset they owned, but patience in a restaurant obeyed different laws. It belonged to the person holding the order pad. Around him, tables filled and emptied. A hedge fund manager tried too hard to impress a date. A family from Ohio photographed every dessert. A famous actor in a baseball cap pretended no one recognized him. None of it interested Preston. He watched Clara move through the room with the same focus she had shown in the boardroom. Efficient, quiet, precise. She remembered names, allergies, anniversaries, and who wanted lemon without being asked. She solved tiny human problems the way she had solved his giant corporate one. At last she approached his table with a water glass and a face of professional neutrality. Welcome to the restaurant you already own, she said. Can I start you with humility or sparkling water? Preston looked up, still deciding. I recommend humility. It is cheaper. She placed the menu down. Soup of the day is roasted tomato. Special tonight is salmon with herb risotto. Ego is not on the menu. I deserve that. You have no idea how much. He almost laughed again. Sit for 5 minutes. No, 2 minutes. Also no. 30 seconds. Clara considered. That depends. On what? Whether you order first like a normal person. Preston closed the menu. What is the best thing here? Depends. Do you want impressive or honest? Honest. Grilled cheese after 10 p.m. He stared at her. This is a 5-star restaurant. Exactly. Which is why no one admits the grilled cheese is perfect. Preston nodded slowly. Then I will have the grilled cheese. With truffle fries? Is that how rich people apologize? No, she said, writing it down. That is how they avoid sincerity. She turned to leave. Clara. She paused. Thank you. For tonight. She studied him for a moment, searching for sarcasm and finding none. You are welcome. Then she walked away. 20 minutes later she returned with a plate so simple it almost looked rebellious among the polished silver and candlelight. Golden bread, melted sharp cheddar, fries dusted lightly with herbs. Preston took one bite and blinked. This is excellent. I know. Do you always answer compliments that way? Only accurate ones. He ate another bite. Join me for 1 minute. You really struggle with the word no. I am improving. Clara glanced around the room. 1 minute. If I hear my name yelled from the kitchen, I disappear. She slid into the chair across from him with the posture of someone borrowing time, not seeking approval. Up close, Preston noticed details the rush had hidden earlier. Faint ink mark on her wrist. Tiredness beneath her eyes. Intelligence there too, bright and guarded. Where did you learn what you knew upstairs? He asked. Books. Which books? The ones people return late. That is not an answer. It is the one you get. He leaned back. You do not trust wealthy men. I trust patterns. And what pattern am I? Successful. Controlled. Used to buying speed when life asks for depth. The sentence landed softly and still hit hard. Preston folded his hands. That was specific. So was your watch. She nodded toward it. Patek Philippe. White gold. Very expensive. Very accurate. Yet somehow it brought you to me late. He looked at the watch, then at her. Do you study everyone like this? Only the loud ones. I am not loud. Power is loud, Mr. Hale, even when it whispers. He had negotiated with senators, founders, and rivals twice his age. Yet this woman in a black server uniform made him feel like the least prepared person in the room. Then tell me something useful, he said. Something I do not know. Clara glanced at his untouched fries. You are lonely. He did not move. She continued calmly. You own the building. You could eat anywhere. Yet you chose the busiest section, where strangers create noise around you so silence does not follow you home. For the first time that night, Preston had no reply ready. Clara stood. Minute is up. Wait. She raised an eyebrow. Dangerous word. What would it take for you to work for me? Why do you assume everyone should? Because talent should be paid well. Talent should be respected first. She reached for the empty water pitcher. Besides, I already have a job. Serving tables? Observing people. She gave him the smallest hint of a smile. The tips are unpredictable, but the research is excellent. In the kitchen, someone shouted, Clara, table 9 needs ranch. She stood immediately. Duty calls. One more question. You are out of questions for tonight. Then one statement. She waited. Preston looked directly at her. I would like to know you. The room around them seemed to soften for a second. Clara's expression changed, not warmer exactly, but less guarded. Start by learning how to stack your own plate. She lifted his empty dish and handed it to him. Dish station is through those doors. He took it on instinct. You are joking. Try me. A busboy passing nearby nearly dropped a tray, trying not to laugh. Preston Hale, who had once purchased a shipping company before dessert, stood holding his own plate while Clara walked away to deliver ranch dressing like it was royal business. He looked toward the kitchen doors, then down at the plate, then back at her disappearing figure. Slowly, unexpectedly, he smiled. Preston Hale carried his own plate into the dish station and discovered something no boardroom had ever taught him. Industrial sinks were terrifying. Steam rose in white clouds. Racks clattered. Two-line cooks moved with the speed of men who had long ago made peace with chaos. A dishwasher named Luis looked up, saw the billionaire standing there in a tailored suit, holding an empty plate, and slowly removed one earbud. You lost, man. Preston set the plate down with dignity he did not fully feel. I was instructed to bring this here. Luis glanced toward the dining room, then grinned. Clara again. Again? You new here? Before Preston could answer, Clara appeared through the swinging doors carrying a tray of glasses. She stopped when she saw him standing beside the sink. You actually did it. I am a man of my word. No, Luis said cheerfully. You are a man in Italian shoes near slippery tile. Clara hid a smile. Go back to your table, Mr. Hale. Preston. Go back to your table, Mr. Preston. She moved past him, loading glasses with practiced speed. Preston did not leave. I want to understand something. That would be a first for tonight. How does someone who can outthink elite engineers end up working double shifts? Clara kept stacking plates. How does someone who owns half the block end up asking personal questions in a dish room? Touché. She rinsed a tray, handed it to Luis, then faced Preston fully. People end up where life places them for a while. The mistake is assuming while means forever. He absorbed that quietly. So this is temporary. Everything is. Even Hale dynamics? Especially that. Luis laughed so hard, he nearly dropped a fork basket. Preston should have been offended. Instead, he felt strangely lighter. Clara pointed toward the exit. Now go sit down before my manager thinks I am hosting tours. One condition. You are in no position to negotiate. Then one request. She crossed her arms. Dangerous improvement. Have coffee with me after your shift. No, tomorrow morning? Still no. This weekend. Persistent no. Why? Clara's eyes softened just enough to be noticed. Because men like you often confuse curiosity with care. She turned back to work. And women like me pay the bill for that mistake. The sentence stayed with him longer than he expected. Preston returned to his table and finished the last fries in thoughtful silence. Near midnight, the restaurant thinned out. Candles burned shorter. Chairs began turning upside down on empty tables. He signed the check, added a generous tip, then crossed it out and wrote a smaller one. Martin, who had reappeared with supernatural timing, stared at the receipt. Sir, is something wrong? No, Preston slid the folder closed. I finally understood something. What is that? Money is useful. It is not interesting. He stood. Also, if I leave a giant tip, she will think I am trying to purchase gratitude. Martin blinked. Are you not? Preston adjusted his jacket. I am trying not to. As they headed toward the lobby, Preston paused near the host's stand and looked back. Clara was laughing with Luis while rolling silverware into linen napkins. No audience. No strategy. No performance. Just a woman ending a long shift with tired grace. He left before she noticed him. The next morning at 6:10 a.m., while Manhattan yawned awake under pale spring light, Preston stood in a neighborhood 3 miles north of his penthouse and 12 worlds away from it. Brick walk-up buildings lined the street. A laundromat buzzed beside a deli. Someone walked a bulldog wearing a sweater. Martin stood next to the Blacktown car holding 2 coffees in visible confusion. "Sir, with respect, why are we here?" "Because people who intrigue me rarely live near valet parking. You had me run a background check overnight." And Martin opened the folder. Clara Whitmore, 29, former student at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, computer science and applied mathematics. Left during junior year. Preston looked up sharply. Why? Medical withdrawal and records. Her mother, Evelyn Whitmore, chronic kidney disease. No father listed. No scandals. No debt beyond hospital expenses. 2 jobs over the last 5 years. Restaurant nights, bookstore mornings. Preston took the folder slowly. Bookstore, independent store on Lexington and 47th. Opens at 7. Preston looked at the street, then at the folder again. She never mentioned any of this. Martin gave him a careful look. Most people do not summarize their pain to strangers over grilled cheese. Preston almost smiled. Fair point. A woman exited the building carrying a canvas tote bag and keys. Clara, hair tied up, no makeup, oversized sweater, walking fast like the city charged by the minute. She stopped cold when she saw him beside the car. "Are you following me?" she asked. Preston lifted 1 coffee. "I was hoping to upgrade to accidental coincidence." She looked at Martin, the car, the coffees, the expensive coat, then back at Preston. "You brought an assistant to stalk me?" Martin offered a polite nod. "Good morning." "No," Clara said. "It is not." Preston handed Martin 1 coffee and stepped forward alone. "I know about MIT." Her expression changed instantly. Not fear. Not shame. Something sharper. Disappointment. "Then you know how to ruin a morning before sunrise." She moved to pass him. Preston lowered his voice. "I only wanted to understand." Clara stopped beside him without turning. "No, Mr. Hale. You wanted access." She faced him now, eyes clear and tired and unafraid. "People like you always call it understanding when it is really trespassing." Then she walked toward the corner bookstore without looking back, leaving Preston on the sidewalk with cooling coffee and the first honest regret he had felt in years. Preston Hale remained on the sidewalk long after Clara disappeared into the bookstore. Manhattan moved around him with its usual impatience. Delivery trucks double-parked. A cyclist shouted at a taxi. Somewhere nearby, a jackhammer began its daily argument with concrete. None of it reached him. He stood there holding a coffee he no longer wanted, replaying 1 sentence. "You wanted access." Martin adjusted his tie carefully. "Sir, your 9 o'clock call with Singapore. Cancel it. Your 10 o'clock board review. Move it. Your lunch with Senator Reeves." Preston looked at him. "Martin, has anyone ever told you that timing is a form of cruelty?" Martin considered this. "Frequently, sir." Preston handed him the untouched coffee. "Drink that. I have earned nothing warm this morning." He crossed the street alone and entered Whitmore Books 3 minutes after Clara. A brass bell chimed above the door. The shop smelled like cedar shelves, paper dust, and old stories. Sunlight angled through front windows onto stacks of novels and biographies. A cat slept on a display of travel guides with the authority of ownership. Behind the counter stood Clara, now wearing a green cardigan over a plain shirt, scanning inventory with 1 hand while balancing a pencil behind her ear. She looked up, saw him, and closed her eyes for 1 patient second. "Do billionaires not come with boundaries?" she asked. "Only the poorly raised ones." "Then I assume yours were very expensive." Preston accepted the hit. "I came to apologize. We are sold out." "Clara," she continued scanning books. "Apologies section is between self-help and fantasy. You were right." That made her pause. She set the scanner down slowly. "About which part?" "All of it." He glanced around the store. "I crossed a line. You crossed 3 and parked on a 4th. I am sorry." Clara studied him in the quiet morning light. People rarely apologized to her sincerely. People with power almost never did. "That sounded almost human," she said. "Do not ruin it." He nodded. "I know I had no right to investigate your past." Correct. I know intelligence does not owe explanation. Also correct. And I know I treated your life like a puzzle because I am used to solving things. Clara leaned against the counter. There it is. What? The honest sentence. She folded her arms. You do not know how to meet people unless there is a problem to fix. The words landed softly and stayed there. Preston looked at the sleeping cat for a moment. That may be true. I know. A customer wandered in asking for a gardening book. Clara walked him to the proper shelf, recommended one with practical illustrations, and returned 30 seconds later. You are still here. I am improving my stamina. Try improving your judgment. She picked up a stack of returns. Preston reached for half of them. May I help? No, he kept holding the books. Too late. Clara sighed. Those go to history. He carried them to the wrong aisle. This is poetry. Close enough. That sentence explains Wall Street. She took the stack from him, moved 2 shelves over, and placed them correctly. Preston noticed how quickly she moved despite obvious fatigue. When did you sleep? He asked. Between your bad decisions and sunrise. You worked until midnight and started here at 7. Then when do you rest? When customers stop asking personal questions. A small smile escaped him. She saw it and almost smiled back, then chose discipline instead. Why did you leave MIT? He asked quietly. Her expression cooled. You are one question away from being escorted out by a cat. I am not asking as an investor. Then why? Preston answered more honestly than planned. Because people do not walk away from gifts unless life is charging rent. Clara held his gaze. Then, unexpectedly, she spoke. My mother got sick. Insurance argued. Hospitals billed. Scholarships covered tuition, not dialysis. So I chose the person who chose me first. She turned to straighten a display no customer had touched. Anything else? Preston said nothing for a moment. He had bought companies for less money than what illness had stolen from her. You should have never had to make that choice. Millions do. Not if systems worked. Then build better systems, Mr. Hale. The bell over the door rang again. An elderly woman entered carrying coupons and a cane. Clara was beside her instantly, guiding her gently toward the bargain shelf and asking about her grandson by name. Preston watched in silence. Clara did not perform kindness. She practiced it. When the customer left smiling, Clara returned to the counter. You are staring. I am learning. Dangerous hobby. You said to build better systems. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Come work with me. Not as an employee, as a strategist. Set your hours. Name your terms. Help me fix what should not be broken. No, you did not even think. I thought. Then no. Why? Clara tapped the wooden counter once. Because if I walk into your world now, everyone will assume I was discovered by a billionaire. She shook her head. I was already valuable before you noticed. The bookstore grew very quiet. Even the city outside seemed to pause. Preston nodded slowly. That may be the smartest thing anyone has ever said to me. Unlikely. Then let me earn a different answer. Clara looked at him with something new in her eyes. Not trust. Not yet. But curiosity, carefully folded. How? She asked. Preston glanced at the handwritten community flyer pinned near the register. Free Saturday coding class for teens. Volunteers needed. He pointed to it. What time should I be here Saturday? Clara followed his gaze, then back to him. For the first time since meeting him, she smiled without defense. Wear shoes you can ruin. Saturday arrived wearing clean sunlight and unreasonable optimism. At 8:55 a.m., Preston Hale stood outside Whitmore Books in jeans that had never met honest work and sneakers purchased by someone who described them as distressed. They were not distressed yet. Martin stood beside him holding a tablet, 2 protein bars, and visible concern. Sir, there are easier ways to impress a woman. Name 1. A private island. 2. Obvious. A charity gala. Too loud. Flowers. Preston looked at him. I am trying to become tolerable, Martin, not predictable. The bookstore door opened. Clara stepped out carrying a box of extension cords and a look of immediate amusement. You came. You doubted me? I doubted your knees. She looked him up and down. Interesting costume. These are casual clothes. These are expensive regrets. She handed him the box. It was heavier than pride and less cooperative. Basement, she said. Watch the third stair. It lies. The basement community room held folding tables, old computers, whiteboards with marker ghosts, and 12 teenagers already generating noise at professional levels. Some more headphones. Some more hoodies. One was taking apart a mouse for reasons known only to youth. Clara clapped once. Good morning, coders. Groans answered her. And this, she said, gesturing toward Preston, is our volunteer assistant. A boy in the back raised a hand. Is he rich? Clara replied instantly. Emotionally, no. Laughter erupted. Preston accepted it with surprising grace. Financially, the boy asked. Unfortunately, yes, Clara said. Another wave of laughter. Preston set down the box. I like this class already. That is because no one has assigned you a task. Clara handed him a stack of laptops. Battery check. Password reset. If smoke appears, find me. Do these machines still work? Some emotionally. Few physically. For the next hour, Preston discovered an economy where status had zero purchasing power. A 12-year-old girl named Maya corrected his cable setup in 8 seconds. A teenager called Jamal asked if billionaires paid taxes or just hired magicians. Another student requested investment advice and then ignored it. Clara moved through the room like current through wire, energizing every table she touched. She explained loops with pizza slices, algorithms with traffic lights, and debugging with the sentence, computers are dramatic but honest. The kids adored her. Preston understood why immediately. She respected them without performing down to them. Near noon, he found her replacing a projector bulb with one foot on a chair. Need help? He asked. You asking or auditioning? Both. She handed him the screwdriver. Hold this. He climbed the chair. It wobbled. This seems unsafe. Growth often does. He steadied himself and changed the bulb while she anchored the chair below. There, he said, stepping down. Useful, she admitted. Document the date. He smiled. That sounded almost like praise. Do not chase it. It startles easily. Lunch was donated sandwiches and apple slices. Preston sat cross-legged on the floor because every chair had been claimed. Jamal dropped beside him. So what do you actually do? I run companies. Like, every day? Most days. That sounds exhausting. It can be. Jamal nodded toward Clara across the room, helping Maya fix a coding error. Miss Clara says people with power are either ladders or walls. Preston looked at Clara. What else does Miss Clara say? That depends who is asking. Then Jamal stood and walked away with the confidence only 13-year-olds possess. The afternoon challenge was simple. Build an app concept that solved a neighborhood problem. Teams formed instantly. Arguments formed faster. Preston moved table to table, listening more than speaking. A student suggested a grocery price tracker for seniors. Another proposed a safe walk-home buddy map. One group wanted an app that translated landlord forms into plain English. Preston wrote notes quietly. By 3 o'clock, he had pages full of ideas no consultant had ever sold him. Clara noticed. Stealing from children now? She asked. Learning from them. Better answer. She sat beside him on the edge of a table. You did well today. That sounds dangerously close to praise again. Do not ruin my progress. For a moment, they watched the room together. Kids laughing. Screens glowing. Possibility making noise. Why do you do this every week after working nights? He asked softly. Because talent appears everywhere and opportunity does not. You say things that should cost money. Then stop getting them for free. He turned to her. Come to dinner with me. She did not roll her eyes this time. Progress. Is this gratitude, curiosity, or strategy? Honesty, he said. I am. Not sure anymore. Clara considered that. Good. Confusion means growth. She stood as Maya called for help. Is that a yes? Preston asked. Clara walked backward 3 steps, smiling in a way that made the room brighter and his answer impossible to predict. It is a maybe wearing sensible shoes. At 4:30 the class ended. Students left louder than they arrived. Chairs folded. Laptops shut down. Clara locked the basement cabinet while Preston stacked tables. You missed a spot, she said, pointing to one crooked leg. He fixed it immediately. You enjoy commanding me. Incorrect. I enjoy watching you learn that service is not humiliation. He absorbed that quietly. Outside, late afternoon light spilled gold across the sidewalk. Clara slung her tote bag over one shoulder. I have to get to the restaurant. Then let me drive you. No, because I am rich. Because your car probably has doors that rise theatrically. He almost laughed. It does not. Then because I like the subway. She started walking, then paused. 6:30 tomorrow. Small diner on 9th Avenue. If you are late, I leave. Preston blinked. That is dinner? That is a test. And if I pass? Clara kept walking without turning around. Do not get ambitious, Mr. Hale. At 6:12 p.m., Preston Hale was already seated in a vinyl booth at a narrow diner on 9th Avenue with a laminated menu, a sugar dispenser missing one lid, and a neon sign that buzzed like it held opinions. He had arrived 18 minutes early, which for him felt like personal reform. The waitress refilled his water twice out of sympathy. Construction workers occupied the counter. A nurse in scrubs ate pancakes with the focus of someone recovering from humanity. 2 teenagers shared fries and one headphone. Nobody cared who Preston Hale was. It was strangely refreshing. At exactly 6:29, Clara walked in wearing dark jeans, a navy coat, and the expression of someone curious whether he had failed yet. She spotted him, checked the wall clock, then nodded once. Acceptable, she said, sliding into the booth opposite him. You measure punctuality by the second? Only with men who previously believed time belonged to them. She set her tote beside her. You passed round 1. How many rounds are there? Unknown. I design adaptively. The server approached. You folks ready? Clara smiled. Coffee for me. Black. He will have the meatloaf special. Preston looked up. Will I? Yes. I do not usually eat meatloaf. Exactly why you need it. The server scribbled and left. Preston folded his hands. So this evening is about character development. No, Clara said. Digestive humility. Outside, rain began tapping the window in small patient rhythms. Inside, the diner glowed warm and ordinary. Clara seemed more relaxed here than anywhere he had seen her. You like this place, he said. It is honest, she replied. Coffee arrives hot. Prices make sense, and nobody says curated. Strong values. You would be surprised how many restaurants fail, all 3. He smiled. You seem different tonight. I am off the clock. Is this your natural form? Do not get attached to it. Their food arrived. The meatloaf looked unapologetic. Preston took a bite, then another. This is excellent. Clara sipped her coffee. You keep discovering common people were right all along. I am having a difficult year. She laughed softly, and he noticed how rare and unguarded the sound was. They spoke for nearly an hour without strategy. She told him about learning chess from a librarian at age 10. He admitted he once bought a vineyard because he liked the label. She nearly choked on her coffee. He told her he had not taken a full day off in 6 years. She told him that was not admirable, just expensive self-neglect. He asked what she wanted if money were no issue. She answered quickly, time for my mother. A scholarship fund for women in coding. A kitchen table that does not wobble. Only one of those costs $20, he said. Then start there. Rain thickened outside. The diner windows blurred into watercolor city lights. Preston watched her speaking with her hands, explaining how some people mistake confidence for competence. He had spent years around polished people. Clara was not polished. She was precise. Halfway through pie, the front door opened and Martin stepped inside carrying an umbrella. In visible panic. He scanned the room, found Preston, and hurried over. Sir, I am sorry. Preston's jaw tightened. Then prove it by leaving. Martin lowered his voice. We have a problem. Kessler Logistics filed an emergency injunction. They claim fraud in the acquisition documents. Trading desks are calling. Legal needs you now. Clara sat back, expression unreadable. Preston closed his eyes briefly. Can it wait 1 hour? No, sir. Martin glanced at Clara apologetically. They are already leaking to the press. Preston looked at the half-finished pie, then at Clara. I hate this. I know, she said. Go. This was supposed to be our evening. Then protect tomorrow so another one can exist. He reached for the check. Clara placed a hand over it first. Not intimate. Certain. I invited you, she said. I am paying. Absolutely not. There it is, she replied. The billionaire panic reflex. She handed cash to the server before he could argue. You can reimburse me by behaving well under pressure. Martin shifted awkwardly. Preston stood. Will I see you later? Clara shrugged lightly. Depends whether you become a ladder or a wall. He wanted to ask more, explain more, remain longer. Instead, he nodded, because she respected action over speeches. Thank you, he said. For tonight. Do not thank me yet, she replied. You still owe me pie. He left with Martin into the rain. In the town car, screens glowed, lawyers called, numbers moved, and the old world rushed back around him like floodwater. Yet his mind remained in a diner booth with a woman who had paid for dinner and improved the room by entering it. 30 minutes later, in the war room, executives argued over headlines and liabilities. Preston listened for 3 minutes, then raised a hand. Silence fell. "Stop reacting," he said. "We solve causes, not noise." He heard Clara's voice in the sentence. Martin noticed too. "Legal," Preston continued. "Verify every claim. Communications, no arrogance. Operations, prepare contingencies. And someone send dinner to the night staff. Real dinner, not sad sandwiches." People moved instantly. Preston turned toward the window. Rain streaked the glass like fast handwriting. For the first time in years, success no longer looked like the tallest building. It looked like earning another evening with someone who could leave at any time and therefore mattered completely. At 10:47 p.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It contained only 6 words. "You forgot your umbrella. Genius." Beneath it was an address in Midtown. Preston smiled so suddenly that Martin nearly dropped his tablet. The address Clara sent led to a 24-hour laundromat on West 46th Street. At 11:18 p.m., Preston Hale stepped out of his car and stared at rows of spinning machines glowing under fluorescent lights. "Either I am being tested," he said, or mocked creatively. Martin remained under the umbrella. "Both seem possible, sir." Inside, Clara sat on a plastic chair beside a dryer, reading a paperback while 2 baskets of folded towels rested near her feet. She looked up, saw Preston, and returned to her page. "You are late," she said. "By 31 minutes. I was stabilizing a company." And yet clocks remained unaffected. He noticed the umbrella leaning beside her chair. "You really stole this." "Borrowed. You left it there emotionally." He sat beside her. The laundromat hummed with warm mechanical honesty. No chandeliers. No polished marble. Just soap, steam, and people trying to begin again by morning. "Why here?" he asked. Clara closed the book. "Because this is where real schedules happen. Nurses, cooks, parents, students, people who cannot outsource inconvenience." She pointed to the machines. "Also, I needed laundry." Preston looked around. A father helped his daughter sort socks by color. An older man slept upright in a chair. A woman in scrubs typed on a laptop while watching 2 washers. "You bring me to interesting places," he said. "You mistake normal places for interesting because you rarely visit them." She handed him a basket. "Full. I beg your pardon. Towels. Edges together. Try not to negotiate with them." He took one awkwardly. "You enjoy this too much. Growth should be entertaining." For 10 minutes, the billionaire learned that fitted sheets were hostile and towels judged silently. Clara corrected his folds twice, then stopped because laughing had made the task inefficient. His phone rang 3 times. He ignored it. "That is new," she said. "What?" "You choosing a room over urgency." "Perhaps I am learning from dangerous women. I am only dangerous to inflated self-images." His phone buzzed again. Martin texted from outside. "Urgent." Preston sighed, stepped near the window, and called back. Martin answered immediately. "Sir, the injunction was bait." "Meaning?" "We traced the leak. Someone inside finance sent draft numbers to Kessler. They knew where to strike." Preston's expression changed. Clara noticed from across the room. "Who?" "We are narrowing it down. But there is more. Funds moved through 3 shell vendors last quarter. Someone has been siphoning operating cash." "How much?" "Current estimate, $38 million. Preston went very still. "Conference room in 20 minutes. He ended the call. Clara was already watching him. "That face means expensive trouble. Someone inside my company is stealing." How original. He almost smiled despite himself. "I need to go." She stood and handed him the umbrella. "Then go. Come with me." Clara blinked once. "To your office?" "You see patterns my people miss. Your people also dislike me. My people can adapt." She studied him carefully. "This is not a trick to spend more time together?" "I am offended by the accuracy of that question." She grabbed her coat. "Fine. But if anyone calls me sweetheart, I leave with office supplies." 25 minutes later, they entered Hale Dynamics through the private lobby. Security guards straightened instinctively at Preston, then looked confused when Clara carried a basket of neatly folded towels. The war room was full again. Lawyers, analysts, executives with tight expressions and expensive fatigue. Conversations stopped when Clara walked in. Preston did not slow down. "Everyone, this is Clara Whitmore." A vice president whispered, "The waitress?" Preston turned sharply. "The smartest person you have met this week. Continue carefully." Silence obeyed him. Screens displayed transaction maps and vendor chains. Clara set the towel basket on a chair and stepped closer. "Who built this dashboard?" "Our internal analytics team," said the chief financial officer, Warren Pike, smooth silver hair and a smile that had survived too many things. "It is comprehensive." Clara looked at the screen for 6 seconds. "It is decorative." Warren stiffened. "Excuse me. Too many colors. Too little truth." She pointed to 3 vendor names. "These are fake." "Impossible," Warren said. "They passed audit." "Badly." She asked for a keyboard. No one moved. Preston slid his own laptop toward her. Clara typed quickly, cross-referencing invoice timing, routing numbers, and shipment logs. She noticed recurring timestamps and metadata patterns. "There," she said. "All 3 vendors bill within 11 minutes of each other every month. Same punctuation style and descriptions. Same rounding behavior. Same hidden administrator metadata." Warren laughed tightly. "Coincidences." Clara looked up. "Coincidences do not use your assistant's maiden name as a filing contact." The room snapped toward Warren Pike. His face lost color by degrees. Preston's voice became very calm. "Explain." Warren loosened his collar. "It was temporary liquidity management. You stole from the company. I intended to repay." Clara leaned back. "That sentence has never helped anyone." Security was called. There was no shouting now, only the heavy quiet of truth entering a room built for appearances. Warren was escorted out pale and smaller than his title. The remaining executives avoided Clara's gaze the way people avoid mirrors after bad choices. Preston dismissed the room except Martin and legal counsel. When the doors closed, he looked at Clara for a long moment. "You just saved me $38 million. "Incorrect," she said, collecting her coat. "I saved you from trusting polished nonsense." "Stay," he said. "Work with me. Change this place." Clara softened, but only slightly. "Tonight I helped because people who did nothing would suffer for what one man did." She stepped closer. "Do not confuse rescue with surrender." Then she tapped the towel basket. "Also, your linens are ready." Preston laughed unexpectedly, the sound echoing through the glass room after midnight. And for the first time in years, every person left in the building smiled with him. 6 months after launching the first phase of reforms, spring returned to Manhattan with clean light, crowded sidewalks, and the annual illusion that everyone had their life together. Hill dynamics had changed in ways headlines did not fully understand. Executive bonuses were tied to worker retention. Vendor contracts required transparent billing. Internships were now paid. A scholarship fund for women in technology had quietly launched and filled in 48 hours. The press called it strategic rebranding. People who worked there called it relief. Preston Hale called it overdue. On the 41st floor, where an unused event space had been transformed into a bright learning center, rows of students tested laptops while volunteers moved between tables. A glass sign near the entrance read the Evelyn Whitmore Innovation Lab. Clara had argued against naming anything after her family. Preston had listened respectfully, then ignored her completely. "You are impossible," she had told him. "I am consistent," he had replied. This afternoon the center would officially open. Donors, reporters, educators, and city officials filled the room with polished shoes and practiced smiles. Clara stood near the back in a simple blue dress and low heels, looking like she would rather be anywhere else. She had accepted a new role months earlier, though not the one Preston first offered. She was now director of community technology partnerships, which sounded corporate enough to satisfy investors and vague enough to amuse her. 3 days each week, she built programs for students, libraries, and neighborhoods. 2 nights each week, she still worked restaurant shifts by choice. "I like staying normal," she said whenever people asked. Preston suspected she had always been the normal one. Martin approached her carrying a clipboard. "He has rewritten his speech twice." Clara glanced toward the side room. "That means he is nervous." "I have never seen him nervous." "Then you have never seen him care." Martin smiled. "You have changed this building." "No," Clara said. "I only rearranged the furniture in one man's head." The ceremony began with applause and flattering introductions no one would remember. Preston finally stepped to the podium. Navy suit. Steady voice. Eyes searching the room once before finding Clara. He set aside the prepared remarks. Martin groaned softly from the wings. When I built my first company, Preston said, I believed intelligence always arrived in polished packaging. Elite schools, expensive suits, confident handshakes. I was wrong. The room quieted. Then one evening, a woman carrying coffee walked into a room full of experts and solved in 1 minute what all of us could not solve in hours. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Clara looked down, already embarrassed. She also informed me that my wallpaper was terrible, my instincts were undertrained, and my personality required maintenance. Stronger laughter now. Even reporters smiled. Preston continued. She reminded me that talent is common. Opportunity is not. So this place exists to narrow that distance. He turned toward the students seated in the front row. No one here needs permission to be brilliant. Applause rose warm and immediate. Then he looked back at Clara. The room felt it before he spoke again. There is one more correction I need to make publicly. Clara narrowed her eyes. That expression, Martin whispered to no one, means he has chosen chaos. Preston stepped away from the podium and walked down from the stage. Cameras lifted. Conversation stopped. He crossed the room until he stood in front of Clara, who folded her arms with suspicious calm. Mr. Hale, she said quietly, what are you doing? Attempting courage. Try shorter sentences. He smiled. Clara Whitmore, you once told me that people like me confuse curiosity with care. I remember. You were right. He took a breath. Then I learned care looks like showing up, listening, changing, apologizing, and being willing to lose elegantly. Her expression softened by 1 careful inch. That is better. You also told me I owed you pie. A laugh broke through the room. With interest, she said. Then allow me to begin repayment. He held out a small paper box from the diner on 9th Avenue. The exact diner. The exact pie. Cinnamon apple. Warm. The room dissolved into delighted surprise. Clara stared at the box, then at him. You catered emotional blackmail? Professionally. She took the box slowly. That is dangerously better. Preston lowered his voice, so only she and the nearest microphones could hear. Dinner tonight. No assistants. No interruptions. No speeches. Just me, trying honestly. Clara let the silence stretch long enough to educate him. Then she opened the pie box, checked the slice, and nodded once. I accept. Applause erupted before he could breathe again. She raised 1 finger. On 1 condition. Anything. If you are late, I eat this alone. Understood. Second condition. There is a second? There are always conditions. She stepped closer, smiling now without armor. Stop asking to hire me every 3 weeks. Laughter rolled through the room again. Preston bowed his head. Done. Third condition. Of course. You carry the pie. He took the box immediately. Clara slipped her hand into his free hand with such natural ease that for a second, even the cameras forgot to click. The students cheered louder than the donors. Martin wiped 1 eye and blamed allergies. As they walked toward the exit together, Preston leaned toward her. How many rounds were there? Clara squeezed his hand lightly. Unknown, she said. I design adaptively. And in a city built on speed, power, and noise, the quietest victory belonged to 2 people who had finally learned how to arrive at the same time. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and let us know where you are watching from. Then please subscribe to When He Chose Her channel for more unforgettable stories of love, dignity, and unexpected moments that change everything. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional journey.